Tuning in with KrAsia, bringing human stories to life. Welcome to Tuning In. I'm Emily Fang, your host for today's episode. Jaxx is the founder and CEO of Singapore-based Mighty Jaxx, a technology-driven integrated future culture platform that designs and manufactures collectibles and lifestyle products. They've partnered with some of the greatest talents and global brands such as Cartoon Network, Warner Brothers, DC Comics, Looney Tunes, and more. We get to pick his creative mind that has grown Mighty Jaxx from a $20,000 startup into the multi-million-dollar company it is today. Thanks, Jackson, for having us in your new office. It's really cool. So when we came in, we saw, we're like, oh, it's like not fully renovated. And then we just walked through this area and I was like, holy crap, like, it's very nice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're just doing the expansion like just after the CB period because everything was on hold. Okay. So it took a little bit longer time than thought. But yeah, the whole idea is that everything on the outside is going to be collaborative. Mm-hmm. So with the teams going to go into their breakout spaces.
Oh, yeah. What do you mean by the team? Like marketing team, product team? Like
because we have a lot of functions. So from manufacturing to marketing to retail and so on. So it's quite collaborative. Every function actually comes together as a group to discuss certain business units pipeline. Okay. So they break up a lot, and we want to make sure that we have enough space to let them do that.
Very cool. And was the whole like design of the space like your vision? Like you're like, I want it exactly this way and that way. And
Yeah. So we work with great IDs, and same thing like how we develop the internal office. We basically told them the concept that we want it to be, and they sort of just make it work, which is almost effortless on our end. We wanted it to be a journey. We used to work from a Peranakan shop house, so we wanted to have that feel with the outside shop house feel. And you walk through this tunnel of lights and going into the nucleus of Mighty Jaxx, and that's why there's the tree and it's full of colors and lights.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's probably one of the best offices I've seen, and I've been to a lot of like co-working spaces and tech startup offices. This has blown my mind.
That's very nice of you. We should do co-working space or something too,
right? Okay, so I guess my first question would be more around your favorite collectible. What has been your favorite collectible or like artist collaboration that you've done here at Mighty Jaxx?
I have quite short attention span. So, when you work on a project for like 6 months to like 12 months, it drags up, I guess, my interest because it goes through all the operational stuff. So my favorite is always the latest one that always excites me.
Yeah.
And those are usually with new artists or new brands that we work with, and everyone's like really ramped up on it. So the atmosphere is very nice for it. But there are some pieces that we've done in the past that remains milestone for us. So I came from a creative background. Yeah. So I built websites, I built interactive media. And I looked up to artists locally like Funk Studio. So they've been around for like 20 over years already. And to work with them as one of the first few pieces that we had was like a dream that a little boy had, and it was fulfilled. And it moved on to international artists like James Jean that I look up to with Born English or Jason Freeney, and some of these artists that we work. Some of them are long-term collaborators as well. So they became friends.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great that you can kind of go into this space and also work with these artists, and then they become part of your community and also your friends as well. I read something about you actually in the Straits Times about you as when you were a kid, like your philosophy on life. I think it was something about, you said when you wanted to do something you just did it, you didn't really think about it, about like the risk. Do you think you still have that like fearless like mentality as you had when you were a kid? And do you think it's something that you need to have in this creative space still?
That was actually a couple of years back, right? About that. Yeah, sometimes I look back and I cringe a little bit.
Why?
But I think we will never have that because, you're really young and like nothing really bothers you and you don't have much best interest in a lot of things. Yeah. So anything you do, it's like, it's pretty much fine. You won't get any worse than that. So while that feeling will never be exactly that, but the general idea of it still exists. However, you're a little bit more careful, or should I say you have a little bit more wisdom, right, in the last few years that you accumulate. And you're able to make calculated risks. I mean, it's still a risk, but it is something that we could design to be successful as best as possible. So I think with the years that came, I realized that that's something that was built innately in me. So it's almost like a sixth sense type of feel.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, and I guess like with maturity, you have more responsibility. It's also you're a founder and a CEO, and also the livelihoods of your employees also are on your shoulders now.
Thanks for such a sobering thought in the morning.
I mean, I think, like, did you ever think that you were going to become a founder of your own company too? Growing up as a kid, you just wanted to create, right? Like, you just wanted to build things.
Yeah, you're right, because I never thought about it as... In fact, I never thought of it as entrepreneurship. Like, that was quite foreign for me. I have very simple desires, which is, when I came out from school and from army, right? I thought, okay, I really like wearing shorts, like Bermudas and stuff, right? Because it's airy and nice. And I thought, what kind of work would allow me to do that? And I think not a lot, because I'm not someone who's really good doing physical stuff, and I don't like that. I don't like the weather and stuff like that. So I don't really want to do that. And I thought the next best thing is to create something that I'm okay with, and it's something that would sustain my lifestyle at a point in time. And that was creating something, a business, right, so to speak. So that was becoming an entrepreneur. But even until then, I don't really associate with that term.
I think that's pretty cool. It's kind of like, I don't want to work a 9-to-5 corporate office job. So I want to wear shorts and I want to live a lifestyle that lets me, be innovative and do
I think it was an army when that really came up, because you have to go by the schedule, right? So you have no choice. And everything that you do, someone else is telling you to do. And that became like sort of annoying, to me.
I feel that.
Yeah. And if I want to eat, I'll eat. Like, I don't want to control my movements and shit like that. Yeah. So then I thought, okay, let's set out to build something that it is in the image of what I like.
Yeah, I also assume like you probably do so many different roles here, like at Mighty Jaxx as well. What would be like your favorite like hat or like thinking cap to wear while you're kind of running this company? And by hat, I mean it could be like whether it's like you're designing something or you're bringing people together, or you're a leader. Like, what's your favorite like hat to wear?
So I think in the beginning, when there were a few people, I prefer building relationships with the brands and artists that we work with. So that is like at the forefront of what's crucial to the company, right? Choosing the right design and so on. And that was fun for a bit, until I realized that what I'm really good at and what I love doing at the same time was to think of ideas that could bring the company to the next level, like beyond what we're doing on an operational basis, but experimental stuff that we have the resources to just execute. Whether it fails or not, it doesn't really matter. Like, it helps us understand what we are as a company. So the continuous experimental of ideas of what a company can do, and not being pigeonholed into a certain category. I love doing that, this simulation type of work.
Yeah, I kind of see you as kind of like moving or like reinventing the wheel, right? Like moving the innovation forward at the company. In your personal perspective, right? Like in Singapore, how do you think people view like innovation and like taking risk and entrepreneurship? Do you think it's evolving? Like people are becoming more and more risk-taking in what they do? What are your thoughts on that? And like, how do you think we can get the youth to be more innovative?
I think I've been through the whole process, right? From the whole academic part of things. And during my time, it wasn't as open, whether it's for entrepreneurship or trying risky ideas. I think people sort of inherit a mindset that, okay, you're gonna be within your lane and within your means, and just do as you're told almost, and go out the same way as generations of people have done before. But with the digitalization of things that's happening right now, it allows us to leapfrog, right? A lot of similar mindset people that think it's still the conservative way. And I thought that was pretty amazing, because you have the opportunity to be like a 15-year-old farmer and earning millions, or doing a toy show on YouTube and earning millions, right? These are all really possible right now.
It makes a lot of money, that kid.
Yeah, it's like amazing,
like
dude.
number one YouTuber.
I want to have a kid like that. Maybe 2 or 3 of those would be good. So that was amazing, right? And I think that opens up a lot of mindset of individuals right now, especially this generation. But the ability to say that, yes, you want to do that, and actually do it, that's another thing. Anyone can think of concepts and ideas. To realize it and make it physical, that's totally different. And I think a lot of my peers in school may have that trouble as well, to think in that format, to be able to take that leap from a cushy job and into that. Yeah. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, I had a really interesting chat with my friend the other day too. It was about like how we usually celebrate people after they've made it to be successful, right? We celebrate like the Harvard dropout who's like a CEO of a tech company, but no one celebrates when he's like, hey, I need like, start crowdfunding, I need seed money to start. That's when everyone's like, oh, like I don't know if you're gonna make it. So I agree with you on that part, that gray area is the scariest.
That's optics, right? I think at some point, even if you do get started, it's almost like the idea of entrepreneurship is romanticized to some degree. And because the news often publish like the great stuff. So I think people may have a, I guess, almost unreasonable idea that they will be successful. And they get frustrated when they don't get it, like, the next month or something like that.
That's true.
Yeah. So managing the expectation, maybe.
Did you face that when you were in that gray area, or are you just like, I'm just gonna do it?
For me, it's a little bit different because when I started my previous businesses as well, so maybe in 2012, 2011, it was really to create an environment that I'm comfortable in, and money and everything else isn't quite that pursuit. To me, I learned that the monetary part of things has always been a byproduct of the passion that I follow, the creation that I had to continue doing. And so, the funny thing is that when you never thought about that kind of things, it will come. And it will often take you by surprise that, hey, we are not actually bankrupt the next one. Like, we can actually pay our staff. So, yeah, for me, that's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah, I think it's great that you kind of found the intersection of like your passion and also making it a job and basically building a company out of it. I think that's really admirable, and not a lot of people can do it. So yeah, I think that's great. I think we're also going to switch gears a little bit too and talk about like digitalization, because you've mentioned that before. I know Mighty Jaxx also has an app, right? Yeah. So I didn't get them a website because obviously you sell products online, but can you tell us a little bit more about your app and where you plan on taking the technology with that app?
Well, our app actually started as just a simple e-commerce platform, right? So you can just purchase our newest item. We drop every Saturday, and you can buy it off it. But I think early last year, in 2019, we actually made some of our most aggressive expansion plans. And that revolves around authenticating collectibles and the transfer of ownership of these collectibles, because we find that there is a need to track and record all this ownership so that we could prove the provenance of these high value items. It's almost like art, right? And in doing so, we also realized that we could create and expand on our app that caters to the consumers, the collectors that we have. And that includes, the authenticating part using NFC chip.
How does that work? Do you like scan something or?
Yeah, so all our collectibles have a chip in it, and you could use any smartphone, tap onto the designated spot, and you could authenticate and you could register your ownership of the item. And if you do sell it to whoever next, then the new owners would then be reflected on the ledger as well.
And you can also track stolen ones too, right?
Right. And for us, it's really the bootleg part of things, right? Like because these are ultimately physical products, and it's not just us, of course. Some of the larger brands as well face this bootlegging issue, and it often comes from associated factories and backdoors and samples that was not approved and somehow it's still leaked down. But you could never track this, and now you can.
That's fascinating, actually, and that's very smart. Was this implemented, like the tracking? Like, when was it implemented? Like.
So we started working on it early last year through Tribe Accelerator, which is this blockchain accelerator in Singapore, backed by the government. And later on, I think we only implemented proper about 3 to 4 months ago. And we started seeing people registering, claiming their ownership of the item. And we thought, okay, what else can we go from here? Like, can we feed different digital assets to the collectors, right? And it turns out that we can. We could feed all kinds of data points and information to them that pertains to the item that they bought, right? So if you buy a particular artist or designer and it's a particular shape, we know that you're into that, so that we can give you the information that's related to that as well. Yeah.
That's genius. Yeah, it's a digitalized package tailored to your needs and likes.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, that makes sense. So my last question is kind of just to round up the entire interview. What has 2020 taught you, like just in general, about the space that you work in, and then maybe your personal reflection about how far you've come? Because I think 2020 has been so focused on like COVID and like my business and how it's been so disrupted. But for you, speaking in terms of like just reflecting on your year, what are your thoughts around it? It can be anything.
I think for a lot of people, this year have been really short as well. It's really, really quick because of everything that's happening and everyone's rushing to resolve that issue, right? Mm-hmm. And it also caused a lot of, I guess your plan don't always go according to plan. And I think at some point, we always wake up the next day thinking that everything's going to be the same and taking that as granted. Mm-hmm. But it isn't really, because we really don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to wake up? Are we going to not? And this conversation took a turn towards that, because I felt as much as everyone could plan provisions for this kind of situation, the truth is you can't. And as a company, you gotta be liquid, I guess, in the way you approach challenges like this. And I think what's unexpected from the beginning of this period was that, okay, so the gaming and entertainment and everything's gonna go up because everyone can go to work and everyone's gonna stay at home. And the whole gaming market just like sort of exploded in this year. The question is, to how far would it continue to sustain at this level in the next few years? And the truth is, this is probably going to be the new way of life, right? And this also created opportunities that originally wasn't suitable, perhaps virtual events and so on, right? And that gives birth to a whole new wave of companies and founders that think on that level. So I think for us, it's able to identify what's that and to go on that, catch that wave as quickly as we can.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think there's a lot of truth in like what you said, and you're right. 2020, no one could have planned for that. Do you have any last words that you want to say to anyone tuning in, or any like merch or links you want to drop?
Yeah, I think this conversation that we're having, it's only representative of what we are understanding right now, and it may not be really relevant, in the next few years in the future. So just take it with a pinch of salt. This is just from one perspective. I think just generally keep your mind open on things.
That makes sense. Well, thanks for having us in your beautiful new office and taking the time to speak with us. I appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks for having me. It's really my pleasure.